Hey everybody, Christopher Green, AMTV Alternative Media Television. Please like and share this video worldwide. Have an emergency update. The capital of China has now fallen officially into a quarantine. Not only are 500 plus million people already in quarantine in China, we're seeing people being brought out by their shirts, screaming, yelling, panicking, running from police as they're beaten, thrown into moving vans, and then forced in what they call our quarantine hospitals. But then what we see on heat maps, I showed you this yesterday, very, very alarming. Another reason to share this because they want to cover it up. And they don't want it out to the American public and global citizens worldwide. We could see the heat maps of the bodies allegedly being burned. Now, reported yesterday, I'm going to get into the Beijing quarantine here in a minute. This, again, is a global cover-up. It is a biological weapon of death. Many of you think, and myself included, to cull the population, not just in China, but worldwide. I believe this is coming to America. And look, if they can shut down city after city, 500 million people in forced quarantine, lock down cruise ships and floating prisons, what makes you think that this isn't coming to the United States? That they couldn't do this, God forbid, in New York City or Chicago, Los Angeles, Phoenix. And I was tweeting this earlier. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at AMTV Media. Thank God we have the Second Amendment here in the United States of America. I mean, that is the last line in the sand before absolute tyranny. Also, the Premier of China, Mr. Xi, actually made a rare appearance after being in hiding over the last couple of weeks. Now, if you see the images, it looks staged. Of course, he's got the mask on. I'm sure everything's been sanitized and before his visit, but that to me almost seems more eerie than his disappearance because they're trying to make it seem as if things aren't as bad as they truly are when they've now just locked down officially one of the largest cities and the capital of China on the planet. Beijing falls in an I Am Legend moment. I mean, I was talking about this earlier. It's almost like we live in the Matrix or something. Right? We have Donald Trump as president of the United States, former apprentice reality TV star. Don't get me wrong, I love the president, I support him, but still, those are the facts. Now we have a mutating biological zombie apocalypse weapon that has infected millions, according to the Chinese billionaire that I reported on yesterday. 50,000 bodies burned in crematoriums, hospitals going up all over the world, people quarantined in floating ships. I mean, what's next? Alien disclosure? UFOs? I mean, really, it's getting out of control. Beijing falls, please share this, to coronavirus, the capital of China, in a complete and utter lockdown under what they call a pandemic quarantine. China's capital city of Beijing is now under a pandemic lockdown, just like we had warned about was coming here at AMTV Alternative Media Television. An emergency order that will no doubt shock the world. China's capital city of Beijing is now under a pandemic lockdown. This is a breaking news alert from the Chinese Liberty and LibertyTimes.net. I tweeted earlier a Chinese article of this declaration of quarantine in Beijing. Now, this is important to note because the Chinese leadership and government, at all costs, this is why they were quarantining Wuhan. It's why the Premier, Xi, has not even visited that area. Again, it's all for show and the cameras and these kinds of things right now. They were willing to let every other city, millions and millions of people, fall in quarantine, but they didn't want it to come to Beijing. Now that it's at Beijing, this is obvious that this is out of control. This is obvious that this is a true panic, that they're running out of supplies. That, and another statistic, by the way, are many of the businesses in China, because they're not functioning, manufacturing has been shut down, they're rationing food, supplies, baby diapers, vegetables, lean protein, all these kinds of things. Chinese companies have taken out the equivalent of an $8 to $9 billion capital injection and loan to help ride out the storm of what's happening in China today. Today, quote, the Beijing authorities also issued an epidemic prevention and control notice, strict residential closed management, declaring that Beijing has also entered a closed city state, quarantine, martial law. According to the notice, Beijing further restricted community closure management. Foreign vehicles and personnel are not allowed to enter. Arriving in Beijing must also report health status, complete the registration of personal information. Those who refuse to accept medical observation, home observation, and other preventative measures could be killed. I reported on this over the weekend. They have instituted the death penalty for anyone that lies about even being near the coronavirus. So think about this for a moment. If you're being pulled out of your home, kicking and screaming, and you can't defend yourself, let's say you don't have the virus, but they think you do. Or your neighbor tattletaled on you just because they don't like you, and they said, hey, that guy's got the coronavirus. He's been exposed to it. Then you're being taken to a forced quarantine, internment, concentration camp, jail, which they call a hospital. Then you're guaranteed to get the infection. See how scary this actually is? I mean, it really is out of a movie. Which constitute violations of public security management shall be severely punished, which includes the death penalty, public security organs in accordance with the law. So what this means, just in a broad conclusion, brushstroke, Beijing has fallen. Asia has reached pandemic levels. This is hitting all corners of the world. It's already here in the United States of America. It's all over Europe. It's all over Asia. China absolutely cannot contain this thing. We know, as many of you have investigated for yourself, that this is a biological weapon of war. I believe it's being used to cull global populations. And now we see draconian action being taken by the militarized police in China, measures that utterly, just completely revoke the basic sanctity of human life and, more importantly, human rights. It's interesting, I didn't watch any of this, but the Oscars are complaining about milk yesterday. I mean, it's ridiculous, but they have nothing to say about this deadly pandemic virus that is man-made, that is waging war on human populations, human life. And we're seeing governments take advantage of this because they never let any good crisis go to waste. It's also important to note that the quarantine levels now exceed the entire population of the United States of America. So what's the bottom line here? And it lists all the cities currently under quarantine. And they've already admitted that the coronavirus kill rate is somewhere between 15 to 17%. I've seen as high as 25%. So what's the takeaway? The takeaway is that preparation is absolutely key here, folks. You're going to want food, you're going to want water, you're going to want preps. Thank God we have the Second Amendment here in the United States of America. We know that the Chinese government is lying to us. We know that the U.S. government is covering up the severity of this. Again, the last thing these government officials want you to do is panic until, it's too late. You're not going to get a warning. No one on CNN or CNBC is going to tell you now's the time to prepare for what they know is an inevitability. What we do know is that over 500 million people are in lockdown, that tens of thousands of people have already died, and their bodies are burning in the center of Wuhan. We can see the heat map evidence for ourselves. Now we know Beijing has fallen in an almost apocalyptic-like Hollywood event. I mean, I haven't seen anything like this but in the movies. And the question we need to ask is, what is next? Are you prepared? Do you have means to protect yourself and your family? Also keep in mind, a lot of smart Chinese, millions of Chinese, fled pre-quarantine. So if things are getting hot here in the United States and we start to see this, you start to see this spiraling out of control, certainly consider your own bug out plan. Get out of major metropolitan areas, in my opinion, and out of the cities if necessary. Because once martial law is declared, once there is forced government thug quarantines like we see in China right now, then there is no rule of law. There's a total panic situation. And we've seen this in the United States of America, not just abroad in Asia, but we saw this, for example, Hurricane Katrina stands out in my mind, where there was gun confiscation, there was martial law, there was panic, and there was dead bodies floating, all over the place. I love you guys. God bless. Again, this is not to be in fear. Please put your faith in our King, Jesus Christ. Get right with God. That is your number one prep. I encourage you to do that. But also, don't be stupid. Take precautions now. Protect yourself. Protect your family. Get the necessary supplies. Protect your investments. Protect your soul. I love you. This is the truth. And get it out everywhere. This is AMTV. Hard-hitting and in your face. Like it. Share it. Get it across all social media networks. Again, they don't want you to know what's really going on. And they certainly don't want you to share this video. So please share it. Hey guys, Christopher Green, AMTV, and of course, BitcoinRich.com. Today is your last day to get in, to reserve your seat, register for our world-class blockchain Bitcoin and Crypto Academy before prices go up. We had a huge weekend. Bitcoin eclipsed the 10,000 psychological mark. Dipped a little bit today on the CME futures, but we've seen some massive, massive moves. And most of you are missing this. Again, just like most of you miss the internet, social media, and e-commerce. I'm just telling you guys from the bottom of my heart, in addition to your preps of food, water, gold, bug out, shelter, all these kinds of things, one of the key things I've been doing that's been really, really successful for myself, my family, and our tens of thousands of students worldwide is learning about and educating themselves and myself about cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. It truly is the future of store of wealth, of money, and in an environment where we now have pandemics, happening worldwide, unforeseen black swan events. When we know, and you know tuning in, for example, the U.S. stock market is a fraud. It's based on a foundation of lies, bank bailouts, and manipulation at the Federal Reserve, that there's very few areas where it's safe. And, I highly recommend gold, I highly recommend silver, but I also highly recommend our course. At the very least, learn about it and get in today because we are raising pricing at the close of business today. So it's your last chance to get in, learn everything you can. We also have a 30-day money-back guarantee. For any reason you're unsatisfied, we'll gladly give your money back. But I really, really encourage you, get in now. Okay, don't think about the what-ifs in the future or the hindsight as 2020 vision after Bitcoin skyrockets, goes to 100,000, and then it's obvious that this is the place to be. I'm just telling you guys again, I'm warning from a guy who started social media, a social media company 11 years ago, that cryptocurrency and Bitcoin is the most overlooked, undervalued asset class in the world. And not only is it up over 43% year to date and near 100% last year and 5,000 plus percent since inception. I mean, we're still very, very early. So it's not too late to get in. You should be learning about this. It's going to affect your job and your career. So I never guarantee you'll make money, but I will guarantee I'll change your life. I'll put you in a positive mindset, and I'll teach you things that you don't know about. So join our world-class school, lock in that pricing, reserve your seat before it goes up by the end of business day. I love you guys. I'll see you all there. God bless. Think and grow. BitcoinRich.com.